That's so awesome right there, though. Imagine that's your job at a nuclear plant. If you're working at a nuclear plant and somebody puts you in a paper suit and tells you to go over there and point at the ground and everything is coated in something that's green, punch them in the mouth as hard as you can and run away. And then show them this video in court when they try to convict you. Here we go again. If evil never takes a break, why should the light? We need to shine a light on this stuff. And what better way to shine a light on crimes against humanity and treason and racketeering and genocide than to point out the fact that some people involved in the cover-up were so egregious, they certainly deserve the death penalty. And guess what? Japan has the death penalty. So this was March the 17th. This is March the 18th. Some word up. The headline said March the 17th. It didn't get posted till after midnight, apparently, right? This was a media. And when you go to these links, of course, they're always missing. All right. Welcome to the madness. I've been at this for hours and hours. And so I had a lot I had to chop out because there was all this Japanese. And the translator, not for the whole thing, but for most of it, came in after. You'll get it if you hang around. You'll figure it out. It's a lot better.
My name is Nishiyama. I'm a Director General for International Trade Policy, but
he's the Director General for International Trade and Policy. But you're gonna like the but.
This time, I'm in charge of nuclear and industrial safety and safety agency. Yeah.
He's in charge of nuclear safety and safety agency for this time. But that's not who he is. And normally, he's Industry Safety Agency, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. I'm sorry. He's that now, but he wasn't that yesterday, the day before this video.
First of all,
so he shouldn't even be in the conversation. The reason they use people like him because he knows nothing about nuclear, so he can't make like a Freudian slip or something, or put out anything tangible because he can only regurgitate what they tell him.
Well, I'd like to update the most recent status of 6 plants.
But how can you when you know nothing about nuclear? Nuclear is extremely complicated, unfortunately.
Belonging to Fukushima Daiichi, number 1 site. If I may categorize those 6 plants according to the nature of the operation of those plants, Unit 1, 2, and 3 were operating when the earthquake occurred. And right now, they are having introduction of seawater to cool down the fuel inside the pressured vessel. And as you can see from the handouts, the seawater has been pumped through fire extinguishing carts from the sea to the pressured vessel, and sometimes in containment vessel too. And I'd like to avoid a detailed explanation. If it's necessary, I'll touch upon later according to your questions, responding to your questions.
I guess he does. So this is what it looked like when he was talking. Reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4. All of these buildings had 2 fuel pools of reactor cores, around 30 years of inventory at the top of the buildings, which meant there was 8 or 9 reactor cores, maybe 15 at the top of each of the buildings. Let's lowball it and say 8 or 9 reactor cores per building, 36 reactor cores. I think everybody can agree, as honest, will agree that's a pretty safe assessment of how much, and each of these reactor cores were equal to 100 Chernobyls.
But if I may touch upon the characteristics of each plant, the first unit has a relatively stable stage right now.
The explosion at the number 1 was reportedly caused by the earthquake, not the tsunami. This happened. Originally, the damage was, it was melting down within 50 minutes.
Status right now, but in the past, there was a possibility that the fuel might be somewhat damaged because in the
because of explosions.
Status right now, but in the past,
I'll stop that.
There was a possibility that the fuel might be somewhat damaged because in the past, for some length of time, the fuel was not covered by the water.
Which means it blew up right away. Oh, that's right. We got videos and pictures of it blowing up.
And regarding Unit 2,
which is right alongside of Unit 1. Unit 2, of course, this was the heat signature in your top left-hand corner. This burnt constantly for days, and they assumed the fuel pool had burnt down through the reactor core, through the building, and has exited the building. And we know later the Earth was split in 6 places where the steam, so-called steam, which was nuclear fuel emissions coming out of the ground where it had split the Earth open from the hydrovolcanic explosions of these enormous temperatures hitting water, was at over 10 sieverts per hour at 6 stationary Geiger counters, but turned out that they were maxed out at 10 sieverts. Lethal doses. In fact, they abandoned the site because of this radioactive China syndrome emissions coming from the Earth that was cracked wide open because of number 2, number 1, number 2, number 1, number 3, number 4. As far as we can, we've been covering this since it happened. We have pictures and documentation. They lost their fuel pools. Now, as for the reactors, when these exploded, and when you see the videos, of course, you realize you have to have a downward pressure to have an upward and explosions. So you would rip apart the containment anyway. Container number 2 reactor was no longer sealed. That was the day before they gave this press conference. That was the French government, who's pro-nuclear, and it's highly unusual for them to say anything like that.
It was not confirmed whether its suppression chamber was damaged or not. Actually, there was a big explosion type of noise around the Unit 2 area, but it was not confirmed that that was, at the beginning, it was said to be from the Plant 2, Unit 2, but still it was not confirmed whether the containment vessel or suppression pool of Unit 2 was damaged.
Unit 2 is this one right here between Reactor 3 and Reactor 1 and Reactor 4 have all lost their entire inventories. It's absurd that you know that they're even considering talking about Reactor 2 in that context. The thing is, you can't get near it. You can't put cooling into it because it's lethal doses from the fallout everywhere. The tsunami washed away all the infrastructures. The radioactive fallout made sure you could never be able to mitigate anything. You can't work physically in that environment because it'll melt your organs. Just let me bring up the actual videos. It'll make more sense, I hope, if I play, say one. I'll play Reactor 3 explosion. I'll be alongside of Reactor 2. So to see the building is completely covered in fuel pellets that are on fire. This is organ melting anywhere in that proximity. Then this was Reactor 1 exploding. That's on one side of Reactor 2, and on the other side of Reactor 2 is this. Now, in this one in particular, you can actually see the fuel pools and the reactor cores starting to fall back down to Earth. You see the big trail they're leaving? Just let me show you a picture of what the top of the building inside actually looks like, and then try to account for what you're looking at when you see if you're not familiar with this. I've been at this so long, hopefully I'm still useful. Think about it this way, maybe. You see the top of the building over there? That's Arnie Gunnarson's version and Megan Gunnarson's version. But the building actually looks like this. So when you look at the top of the building, you see these big, looks like ductwork. That's what they actually are. They were added later to extract hydrogen because the fuel pools they were overloaded, and they had changed a lot to be able to move the fuel bundles closer to each other. The reactor cores are still 97% capacity, and what they're doing is they're covered in water because they boil off like 120,000 liters a day in each pool, because the fuel is still trying to boil water for 1 million homes and businesses, each reactor core. And there could be 8 reactor cores in a fuel pool doing that. And so 8 million people were the atoms being produced to boil water to power homes and businesses. Think of it that way. So how many isotopes are we talking about to boil a glass of water? It's absurd. It's an absurd number. It's bigger than a Google. And so imagine that for 1 million people. Imagine taking that stuff out of the containment and putting it into a building with no containment, only a big chimney on the outside separated that vents it high and hopefully it falls off site. In other words, the fuel is still splitting atoms for millions of homes and businesses, and nobody on the planet has an autoimmune trigger, or species have an autoimmune trigger that can defend against the effects of that. Broken pieces of nuclear fuel rods found outside of Fukushima reactor number 2. That's no man's land. Worst case scenario to unfold in 2 hours if nothing is done. 1.5 hours later, all the fuel rods exposed at reactor number 2. And officials mentioned evacuations soon after. What you got to realize was you got a very limited time, it's going to melt down. So even if you can't because they won't release the information, confirm certain information, you can extrapolate right through science that it was already gone. But we have the luxury of an enormous amount of documentation, so there can be no doubt that we lost those inventories.
And regarding Plan Unit 3, once the pressure inside the containment vessel became very high, and at that
I screwed that up. That's my fault. Look, we'll go right back to that. Yeah, same as we're here already. Let's look at Reactor 3 explosion again. So the containment is not only ejected out of the buildings, the fuel pools, which is around 8 reactor cores, are ejected out of the buildings. And we know that also because we have the footage after, we have the diagrams. So let's go back to that because I smurfed up.
And regarding Plan Unit 3, once the pressure inside the containment vessel became very high, and
very high.
At that time,
it was so high, it was like a mile above it.
It was the water was disturbed to be let into the containment vessel. So
has anybody ever told him he's an idiot? I wonder.
There is a possibility that the fuel was somehow damaged.
Can you imagine what his buddies said to him that night or the next day, or his wife, or like, you don't know nothing about nuclear. What the fuck are you doing with a microphone in your face, you piece of shit? Just horrific. I'm not going to say the word I want to say, but I should. I shouldn't give a shit anyway. But like when you're sitting here all day long putting this together, I'm saying things I would never say on YouTube. Let's put it that way.
And coming back to Unit 2, also there was some time in which
long time.
Fuel rod was not covered. Rods were not covered by the water for some time.
Which means for some time. So, like, the only way you can say it with a straight face like that is if you know nothing about nuclear whatsoever. New TEPCO data unequivocally shows ongoing criticalities at number 2. As a suicide corpse, we can't vent reactor 2. This is the end. Too bad he didn't take that whack job with him. But the only way he can keep a straight face is because he knows nothing about nuclear. That's why he put those people there. Otherwise, right, you're going to see this sarcasm, right?
And there is a possibility that fuel might be damaged somehow. Regarding
breach of containment calls for an investigation. Much more prominent radiation spike after number 2.
Unit 4. 4, 5, and 6, they were stopped under maintenance when the earthquake occurred. And the characteristics of Unit 4 is that it was during this period of inspection, periodic inspection, it has a exchange of shroud within the pressured vessel. So all the spent fuel, all the fuel was delivered to the spent fuel pool.
So he's saying reactor 4 never had any fuel in the reactor core because they were changing the shroud, right? That kind of makes sense. The reactor 4, that means it was in the fuel pool. We know the fuel pool's gone because we have the luxury of hindsight, amongst other things. But when you look at this picture here, you got to realize the fuel pools are at the top of the buildings, 190-foot buildings. They're not there, right?
Unit 4. 4 and 4, 5, and so the spent fuel pool, the amount of spent fuel within the pool is regarding of the unit 4 was the largest one. So right now it was taken care of by the following way. But
right across the street from it was the common spent fuel pool too. But each reactors, because these were old reactors and you don't have a repository, were absolutely, the buildings, the fuel pools were stuffed. And so the estimates, very reliable sources, were downplaying the numbers. We're saying 3,450 spent fuel assemblies. The assemblies are 1,800 pounds. They're 12 feet long, and they weigh 18 pounds each. There's 100 fuel rods in assembly. So you're talking around close to 11 million pounds. But we know that the common spent fuel pool, which was right behind reactor 4, and you've seen the damage to reactor 4. Now, the tsunami ran through these buildings. I'm going to show you. I'll just grab one picture for you to help, because otherwise it's not a big deal. The video is going pretty smooth up now because I've been working at this for so long today, but when I was listening, I had to listen to the video 3 times. Once the computer, once on the big screen because the audio was pretty low, and then when I was cutting it up all day today, right, this evening rather. Okay, let me just make my point and I'll go back, because I got the whole video chopped. It doesn't mean I got documentation for everything. I smurfed up. Oh, there we go. I'll get some more pictures coming up later. This is the common spent fuel pool. And right here is reactor 4, and right there is reactor 3, and that's pixelated out. These pictures were released after 10 years. But that's the common spent fuel pool. The entire thing is pixelated out. Just let me get one more picture a little bit further back. Because when I zoomed in, I didn't know why. When I originally got these pictures in 2021, 736 of them. It wasn't until they were from a high-quality drone that was taken immediately, but they weren't released for 10 years. And I'm the only person, unfortunately, that's showing these pictures today, but hopefully more people do it one day. The transport truck containers in the back are stacked up because of the tsunami on both sides of the building. So it came through reactor 4, went through the common spent fuel pool, which is not even half the height. It's on the same street with basically these sheer sidewalks, so to speak. And you can see the tsunami pushed all those containers to the back, which means, and we know it had windows down low, so we know that the reason, like, why would you pixelate common spent fuel pool if there was no issue? Why would you do that? Why would you release those pictures on top of that? And we're talking about enormous inventories.
I will touch upon later this most recent development. Regarding Unit 5, 5 and 6, those are relatively stable, and no big problems were found right now.
No big problem. Number 5 and 6 were not in cold shutdown after the quake. Implies the report by the U.S. nuclear industry that cooling at the spent fuel pool number 5 stopped until the cables were installed at number 5. What's interesting about this is that's number 5, but that's number 6. And why is that pixelated out? Why is the turbine building pixelated out? Why is the vent for the fuel pools, that tall stack, why is that pixelated out? And the only reason you would do it is because there was releases going on, which meant you couldn't do anything at reactor 5, right?
Regarding Unit 5, there is only one surviving diesel generator with Unit 6, and Unit 5 is borrowing small power from this diesel power generator of the Unit 6, and its cooling system is now operated by was moved by the small electricity from the diesel generator of the Unit 6. But we have to be, I think we have to be careful to check the appropriate level of water and pressure inside the pressured vessel, and also spent fuel pool. Regarding units.
And so that's reactor 6, that's reactor 5. Why is reactor 6 completely pixelated out and everything between it, right? So I think the idea of that story there was by proxy now. He didn't come out and directly say number 6 was fine. He said the generator was working, right? The generator is not located in the critical areas, for instance, right? It's down on the ground separate from the building itself. These are huge, huge things, by the way. You got to realize you're talking about 4,500 tons a minute. You're talking about 6,450,000 tons a day. You're talking about translating that into pickup trucks. So a pickup truck can carry 1,000 liters. So that's 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks, 20 feet long each, bumper to bumper, would be wrapped around the entire planet more than once, have to get into the reactor. So it needs a lot of electricity. It needs 2 external gas, oil, and coal power plants to draw that, to put the water through the system, for instance. So when it's running, it's under enormous amount. Now, these weren't running, but you had all these fuel pools. The water has to circulate. Now, why did they pixelate the building, the turbine building in between it and the vent stacks, right? So then I think the idea was that was a easy cover story, and because when you look at the reactors themselves, they stand out, right? Number 5, cooling system stops back up, not yet working. Analysts showed number 1 was melting 50 minutes after the cooling stopped. So when the cooling stops for 50 minutes on its own merit, right, you have to have circulation. You don't need the exchange going. You got to have that circulation too. You got to remember each of these reactor cores, and there could be 9 reactor cores there, each of them were originally powering 1 million homes and businesses by splitting atoms. So they need an enormous amount of water, or they heat up and they run away.
6. This is the most healthy plant, and
if number 6 was the most healthy, why was it pixelated out, and the turbine buildings and the surrounding areas? White smoke from Fukushima Daiichi reactor number 6 turbine buildings. Now, number 4, they were changing the shroud. Number 5 and 6, they weren't, which meant 3/4 of the reactor cores were still in the reactors. So this is really important stuff we're talking about now. Did number 6 and number 5 maybe have significant releases? Then the evidence, when you start looking at it, is pretty
we have to
one-sided.
keep, as I said earlier regarding Unit 5, we have to keep the appropriate water level and pressure level of pressured vessel, and also the temperature of...
Well, like when you look at the buildings, then clearly he doesn't know anything about nuclear. You got all these reactors.
Spent fair of pool.
So the resources are dedicated nowhere, because you can't. Your organs will melt in that environment. And so the only reason he pixelated reactor 6, as far as I can tell, and we've been at
those
this
are
now
the
for a long
rough
time.
expression of those 6 plants' current status. And
So he just...
the power was out at the time of earthquake in this whole 6
Earthquake took
plants.
the power out.
And the TEPCO has been endeavoring to recover the power. And I heard that today...
TEPCO has been working to recover the power. And I'll show you why that's an absurd statement.
They would start the
Today.
reconstruction of power from the outside source, outside the transmission line.
Which, like, first off, they still haven't rescued the people. Right? People are still missing. You got to appreciate the chaos we're actually talking about. They didn't abandon their communities right away. And that's what happened right away. They abandoned this stuff within one day. They left their pets and animals behind. And your country was torn apart for over 1,000 kilometers. You know, hundreds of thousands of people were still desperate, weren't rescued at this point. And tsunami, this is coming right into Fukushima. So this was a direct hit. And you got 4 reactors, and they're not that far away from reactor 5 and 6 on top of that.
And yes.
And 8 fuel pools. So.
And next, I'd like to touch upon the reliability of data regarding those 6 plants. Actually, because the power was out, and when we look at the movement of the indicators or figures, we could see from those measurement equipment, we think that it's not so reliable right now. So we have to be careful in reading those available indicators from those measuring equipments. And regarding today's development, Japanese, of course, typical people are there, around several hundred, not only TEPCO, but also other cooperating companies and other people, the number of which is now around several hundred, are now...
There's nothing you can do. You've got nuclear meltdowns, ejecting decades of reactor cores all over the site. You can't do something there. The organs melt. It doesn't matter how brave or stoic or stupid you are. You can't. Animals, no species on the planet can survive for more than a few seconds in that environment.
Working in number 1 site of Fukushima, and today first a helicopter of Japan Defense Force throw water over plants of. I'm not. I can't confirm which of them, but third unit and or fourth unit.
Well, I got a little video of that actually. You tell me. That's reactor 4 rather. That's reactor 3 ahead of it. It never reached any of them. I got more videos. We'll look at another couple. They're like they can't get close to it because you got 4 nuclear meltdowns with 8 fuel pools. So 36 reactor cores melting down to one time. This is just meant to manipulate the population and thinking that they can randomly save anything.
Okay. Probably third unit. The Defense Force helicopter threw water, a big amount of water, over the third unit.
Yeah, well, I heard he's trying number 3. How's this big amount of water? And that is a big amount of water. Right? Those things I don't know what it is. I think it might be like 8 tons or something. But out of that, because that's the big helicopter, dual Sikorsky type helicopters. The Medusa reactor, none of that is reaching the reactors. They gave it up in the first days, but they needed that for the media, so the media can.
And you know well at Chernobyl, the helicopter pilots that came in and that deposited the heavy materials to try to put down that fire, which was a very different kind of event than what we're looking at now. But still, there were helicopters, and the pilots all died from radiation exposure. Here's a decision question.
Now, I audited at Harvard, MIT, and Stanford, I think it was, recently. You'll find those 3 in the playlist right away. The top of the playlist was the audit of their videos, their responses to Fukushima, and they were, they should be getting a death penalty too for what they done. Here's another helicopter drop. All 600 helicopter pilots died in Chernobyl. I gotta look at that one more time. So this is another attempt to drop it on reactor 3, but this is not even borated water. This is salt water, for goodness sakes. This could make it much worse, and then the heat will turn that salt water into a sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs, which
after that,
hideous
in the afternoon, the Japan police and also Defense Force have been preparing for the
police and the
water
Defense Force. People
introduction,
who don't know nothing.
Big amount of water introduction through strong powered.
Now, he normally speaks really good English, I notice, except when he's
fire engine type of thing.
I should fire you off a skyscraper. There's your fire engine. Remember, the reactors need 4,500 tons a minute, each of them. So think about 70 tons a second. So think about 71-ton pickup trucks going past your house every second. Those hoses do around 300 tons a day. The reactors need 4,500, 1 million gallons a minute. This was just meant, they sacrificed these people, right, so that scumbags can pretend that this was harmless and innocuous and benign. It's pretty...
So that's the new development, and the purpose of those activities are to restore the amount of water level within the spent fuel pool.
Yeah, they're crazies.
That's all for my explanation. I'd like to take questions from you.
Thank you. I'm from the Associated Press. My name is Joe McDonald. You mentioned that TEPCO is trying to install a power line to supply power from the outside to the power plants. Can you explain why it was not possible earlier to supply extra power? For example, using diesel generators or bringing in some other power source. Why did the company wait until today to bring in this outside power? Thank you.
You can't bring outside power into this place, okay? It doesn't exist. There's nothing to plug it into. And he knew that, the so-called reporter from Associated Press, wasn't it? So what's going to happen is the lady in the middle, or the second from the left, you see her in all the videos, she's the translator. Allegedly, right? But apparently, from what I'm seeing, she's very, very switched on to nuclear. And I looked for her name today and I couldn't find it. And I was doing that by going, because on the 22nd of March, instead of doing the Foreign Press Center, they do it from the Prime Minister's office, right? So it was quite a different environment. And they're more professional, and you would expect to find her name in a placard or on the screen or something, but we didn't. For any of March's press releases, and because it's a lot of work to. So she's going to do the translation from English to Japanese, and he's going to listen to that. Now, he speaks perfect English, as you heard in the first half, right? And he's going to reply in Japanese, and then she is going to translate that to English. So it's a good way of wasting a lot of time, I noticed. And so I chopped out those moments, because otherwise we'll be here for almost 3 days to get through the video, right? And so I'm hoping to avoid that madness by getting everything done before the show starts, which is absurd. I'm probably not even going to do a show tomorrow because that's how absurd it was today. I might recover by then, we'll see. Here we go.
一部私の推測も交えますけれども、
Put that piece through.
この作業を
See him change.
AP のマクダナルドと申します。東電は
So she's never mind, we'll get to it.
発電所に対して外からの電源を引くための
She's telling him what the other guy said, even though she doesn't need to do. I guess they're doing that because this is for the Foreign Press Club or something. The number 4 fuel pool suggested spent fuel started its own chain reaction. It's one of the few times. Now, Arnie Gunnarsson should be in jail for what he done.
状況でありました。
Pretending to fuel.
それを取り除きながら、その外部のトランスミッションラインに、アクセスしてつなぐのには、相当な時間がかかったということが取り除きます。
So after this, I'll chop
This
it
may partly include some assumption of mine, but I wish to make the point that aside from the earthquake itself, Japan in the affected areas also experienced a very large tsunami, tidal wave that Japan had not experienced up to now. And it is considered that the power lines themselves also suffered a considerable damage. So even after the earthquake, there were many obstacles that remained after the tsunami, which were brought in by the tsunami waves. So I would assume that a considerable amount of time was required to remove those various debris and obstacles and to connect the plant to an outside transmission line.
Off-site transmission lines is what she's talking about. Should these 4 high-level government officials, and that's the 4 we're talking about, get the death penalty for treason, racketeering, and genocide? He's the official, now his name is below, and Mr. Nuclear for a Day name is at the top of the list. Now, I don't have her name. Eventually, I'll get her name and I'll put it back underneath all of these videos, but currently I don't have their names. Okay, so for the rest of it, we're not going to go through the translation. We're just going to jump back and forth. And because you're taking questions, we'll play those parts, right? And then we'll play the response. But it's coming from him, not her. She's the translator, but she'll be doing the talking. So when any nuclear academic on the planet sees this picture, any nuclear student, they know all the fuel pools are gone and the reactor core is gone. They know that right away. Have any of them come out and told you? Out of the millions and millions and millions worldwide of nuclear students, nuclear academics, have any of them ever come out and said, look, that's the fuel pools were at the top of the building with the reactor core, they're gone. You guys, sorry to tell you the bad news, take care. Nobody, right? No, nobody. It's terrifying.
And also, I would like to add that the point I made earlier was with regard to large-scale installation of outside transmission lines. And aside from that, the diesel generators and others were not able to be used after they were damaged by the tsunami.
When you look at the tsunami, that's the site itself. That's Fukushima in particular. This happened at the Donny plant too, by the way, which was an identical plant. When the tsunami comes in, it comes in there's multiple waves. The tectonic plates have let go and they dropped a significant distance, and that displaces the water at the surface, right? And then the collapse to fill in, because it's such like a 400-mile collapse or something. Then the tsunami comes in as it's coming in, it breaks up into multiple stages, and there's multiple waves. So the first one comes in, looks like that. There's another one comes in now on top of that, and that one will ingress a very long distance, and another one will come in on top of that, and that'll ingress. We're talking at enormous speeds too, at 400 or 500 miles per hour. And so at first, it might slow down because it's running into all these obstacles, but it's going to tear them apart. The next one will still come in at very high speeds. And that's why it was so powerful for such a long distance. This was the coastline. The red are dead people, the tsunami killed. And the yellow are people that are missing. Right? And so this is a huge distance, over 1,000 kilometers of coastline where people were homicided by a tsunami. And you can see the tsunami basically turns everything into like a big wood chipper coming through.
But other power source vehicles, in other words, vehicles that generate power on the vehicle, have been introduced from a very early stage after the earthquake.
And so the reason it never had any power, that's what all this was about, that's all those replies were about. But I'm telling you the reason why with the documentation. So they have their versions, but you can't hook power up to these buildings. They don't exist anymore. And on the peripheral even of the main areas, it's still lethal doses. And so this person would have died within the hour and a half, or within minutes. It's absurd that we're looking at these types of pictures, that people were given paper suits, for goodness sakes, and nobody knows who he is, only but a number on his boot, number 8. They die. Right? You got to realize that's a long distance away from this, and they still haven't been into the turbine buildings. They'll never get in there because the fuel fell in there.
David Pilling, Financial Times. Could you tell me what, if you know what the radiation levels are around the plant itself now? I've spoken to a number of people today who are not nuclear experts at all, but they seem to be under the impression that people who are working in the plant now, fighting to bring it under control, are in a sense being sacrificed, i.e. that this will end badly for them. Is that a rash assumption? Is this just a rumor?
And that's a great story for the media, very salacious, right? The suicide squads. And that's 100% true. They were sacrificed on purpose to it, but they weren't, like nuclear experts. This is not a nuclear expert. You could never convince a nuclear expert to wear a paper suit at a nuclear meltdown. You couldn't. The only way you can get them to the nuclear meltdown site is if you blindfold them at gunpoint and brought them there. There's no way you would get them on that site. A doomsday-like radiation release of a fire in the pool at Unit 4. And that's pretty looking doomsday looking, isn't it? Now, officially, that never happened. Officially, everything is still intact. They got all the fuel into the pool on top of that in 2013. That's what it looked like in 2000 and late 2012 over there. In 2013, 150 feet above the stump, and this is what it looked like according to the world media. So the whole world media, the universities also have to participate, and government agencies, for that lie to work. Because if you have descending voices, then the lie can't work, because that'll slowly work its way out. Unfortunately, they got away with it now, and we are just stubborn and refuse to give up.
In response to the first part of your question regarding the radiation levels that have been recorded, at the boundary of the premises of the power plant, the highest level that has been detected so far was 10,850 microsieverts, which would be equal to 10 millisieverts.
What a rotten thing.
それでFO の方々
the stacks, the exhaust stacks, those tall stacks, you see that that frame there, that's the stack. That's away from the reactor itself. That's for venting the fuel pool. The base of those stacks was lethal doses, over 10 sieverts per hour. 3 sieverts, 4 sieverts will kill you relatively quickly. It melts your organs. If you stay there for 10 or 15 minutes, you'll feel like you have diarrhea, and you'll squat down and you'll start excreting your organs because they're melted, and they'll find you right in that position later, and they'll say, don't go over there. Get out the big excavator and pick that up and dump it in an incinerator, because he's too radioactive to be.
Yeah, and obviously the radiation level of the operators from TEPCO are appropriately managed in accordance with the rules.
What's the rule? I wonder, around multiple nuclear meltdowns. There's not going to be any scientists there. If you're there, you're because you don't know anything about nuclear, like the people.
And the closer you go into the unit, obviously the higher the radiation level. And so I have been told that the radiation level for each individual worker is being properly managed by limiting the period of time that each worker stays in or close to the unit.
Yeah, no one's going there. Nobody's going there, Medusas, okay? It's just not going to happen. Just let me just clean up what we went through so far, because everything looks the same on my side. I got so much going on here. Right, so she's the translator.
And also, even at the point where we have detected 10,850 microsieverts at one time as the highest level that has been detected.
As the highest levels at a nuclear meltdown. It was actually over 1 million sieverts outside of reactor 1 when they were talking. 3 to 4 sieverts will melt your organs. I'm not sure what 1 million sieverts is going to do, but my heart goes out to the loved ones, is all I can tell you. So let me see if I can find that for you, because we've been getting away with it so far. I got most things preloaded. I'm probably going to have to do this with each of the videos on top of that. I don't know how I'm going to find that energy, but if not, you're going to have to suffer for 3 days before. At the rate it's going, who knows how long it's going to take to get through it. I was hoping it would go a bit quicker than this tonight. It is what it is. I'm not going to complain. It's going to be what it's going to be. I'll find it right there. Up to 1 million sieverts per hour outside reactor 1 and 2 containment vessel. Oh man, this is absurd numbers.
Subsequently, the radiation level has dropped rapidly.
Well, it can't drop rapidly. You couldn't measure it anyway. We don't have Geiger counters that can measure at that time. These were estimates, right? Yeah, but what they're doing is 100% racketeering. It's meant to destroy Japan. Their job, by the looks of it, was to destroy Japan.
And at the moment, it has declined to a level of around 1,500 to 1,600 microsieverts.
Millions. And these are lethal doses we're talking about. We're actually there. But these videos are for the foreign press. They're going to be translated in English for the foreign press. That's what this was all about. This was the message they wanted to send out to the world. So this is really important stuff. This is actually the very foundation, right? This is the... It's time to make a geezer suicide squad. We've exhausted our options. That's a really, really, really derogatory term, too, by the way, geezers. It's a reference to older people who worked all their life, who know things, who are actually educated and articulated and give a shit.
Dennis Ermile of Science.
And I apologize, but a lot of volumes are back and forth, depending on how close they put their mouth to the microphone and everything else. So there are not too many, but some, I'm not sure why I missed that one. But I know that the press, the English press, got their microphones are always better than their microphones. Their microphones are purposely turned down to where you have to strain yourself. I can boost my audio with the system that I have, fortunately, right? But the average person on YouTube listening to the video, the original.
Thank you very much for taking time to come here.
And the small voice will suffer.
Have there been any studies or simulations or modeling of what might happen under the worst case scenario?
And it's interesting because none of them acknowledged this is the worst case scenario. None of them said the word you have multiple nuclear reactors blown up. It doesn't get any worse than this. There was no descending. There was kind of a couple times where you'd think there's a descending voice, but then you realize that's the setup for the reply. Like, for him to do his job, he has to know what the question is because he doesn't know anything about nuclear. Everything he's saying is scripted, right? If you stop him on the street, as he told you at the beginning, he's not a nuclear guy, but today he's wearing that hat, which is absurd. But the reason that is he can't make a Freudian slip. He can't say something he thinks is innocent, right? He's very standoffish, right? Because he's reading a script. So every question is already and then they tighten it up even more by bringing it to, on the 22nd, this is the 17th of March 2011, March 22nd, they started doing it from the Prime Minister's residence. And I remember that, and I was like, yeah, there you go.
First of all, we have notified the residents in the region, to, first of all, residents within a radius of 20 kilometers to move outside of the 20-kilometer radius of Fukushima number 1 power generation plant. And also we have notified the residents to evacuate outside a radius of 10 kilometers for Fukushima number 2 nuclear power plant.
Which is the Daiichi plant. Now, to be fair, the Daiichi plant is 10 kilometers south. So it's still at the 20, Daiichi is inside that 20-kilometer zone, right? But smoke was seen rising from the Daiichi after the quake, but before the tsunami, the same as Fukushima.
And this notification has been made to the residents based on a reasonable possibility of a reasonable need for the residents to move out of the region.
Radioactive substances rose 5 kilometers in the air on March the 14th and the 15th. Radioactive substances rose 5 kilometers into the air. Well, it was more than that. It was carried by the jet streams to the United States and Europe. And that was the Norwegian Institute? No, that was... I'm not sure, actually.
厳しいアクシデントのケースというのは我々も勉強しております。
And regarding your question about whether we are studying a worst-case scenario, as I'm sure is the same in any country, as a generalization, as long as we are operating a nuclear power generation plant, as a generalization, obviously, we have been studying any such cases as a generalization.
Like, clearly the worst case scenario had already happened.
And for this incident that occurred at the nuclear power generation plant, accompanying the earthquake and the ensuing tsunami that we have experienced, obviously, we are following carefully the changes in the situation minute to minute and are taking measures by predicting what may occur next.
Well, you still got people not rescued, and you still haven't collected all the dead bodies. You still haven't secured half your country. You have now plumes that are going everywhere, and you're telling the world everything is locked down and tight, and very tidy people. They should be going to jail for the rest of their life. That's racketeering, what they're doing there, right? That's treason. Everybody in their country would call that treason if they understood what we're doing here tonight, what we're showing here tonight. That these people, absolutely unequivocally, what I'm telling you tonight is incontestable. That this is racketeering. This is sedition, not sedition, rather, but treason.
I'm Robert Gazelle with NBC News in New York.
Robert Gazelle with NBC in New York.
3 questions that are related to the storage pool in unit number 4.
Well, the media all came out, including NBC, and said that the fuel was taken out of the pool that don't even exist.
What is your response to the statement by the head of the Nuclear Regulatory Agency in the United States that the pool is completely without water?
Right, that was Jasko, I think, made it, but Bill Bouchard had made alluded to it.
And then because of the spent fuel problems that are in Unit 4
Right.
of that reactor facility.
This was the day before, right? This was the day before where he's saying the fuel pools were dry. A doomsday-like radiation release of the fire in the pool, which were... this building was 4 times the height of what you're looking there now. And I'm being generous by saying that. These were 19-story, 65-meter, 190-foot buildings.
Is there water in the plant? Do you have any indication that the fuel rods were stored in a way other than within regulations and specifications? And is there a chance that these rods will reestablish criticality?
Yeah, that was a very odd question for the media, to tell you the truth. I think he might have gotten in trouble for doing that one. This was the heat signatures of the 4 reactors. There was nothing left. Reactor 2, apparently, 9 reactor cores were burning constantly, but also we know a large portion of that went deep into the earth. Let's put it that way.
Regarding your question about whether there is water, there have been differing views on this point. Some say that there are photos that show the existence of water, while there are others who say that that would not be the case, taking into consideration the volume of the spent fuel. And so we have not been able to finalize
This is on the 17th.
which of these 2 views is the actual fact.
Some say it is, some say it doesn't. He's supposed to be the nuclear expert, even though that's the first time he became a nuclear expert. He doesn't have any nuclear degrees. And they don't show you the pictures and say, well, the fuel pool is okay. Even though these pictures were released right away, right? And particularly like Reactor 3, that picture was worldwide the day before. Well, on the 14th, 3 days before this. That's missing 9 reactor cores that are massive compared to, say, Chernobyl. And in toxicity to each reactor core, and there was 9 at the top of the building are now lost. Each reactor core was at least 100 Chernobyls, because Chernobyl was a small reactor, it was a new reactor, it was a graphite reactor. These were massive plutonium-uranium reactors and decades old, with decades of the reactor cores at the top of the buildings. I mean, if you were to be, if experts were to, if the Diet in Japan had experts that were honest, were to grill these same people about these same statements, they would be found guilty of treason and racketeering and genocide. They destroyed their own country. They're the reason that their country will no longer exist and is now a hellhole of poison from radioactive fallout, is because they sold out everybody in their countries and the world, and every species. For what? And remember, this is the industry's public relation guy. He just sit there. He's there as a distraction too, see?
Regarding the statement made by the chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the statement made by the chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission of the United States is a view that is based on one of those two views that we now hear. But having said so, I can understand that a regulatory body of another country may have the tendency to take a conservative view and inclined to be on the conservative side regarding an event that has occurred in another country.
The same NRC said there was 100% release of unit number 4 spent fuel pool in their analyst, and 50% at the reactor 3 fuel pool. And so then the question is, why would you suggest only 50% of reactor 3 got out when you're saying 100% of reactor 4 got out? And then if you look at what they had to work with, and they flew drones over it. So to suggest that reactor 3, for instance, had 50% left in the fuel pool when there was nothing left in the building. So it was ejected right out of the building. This was the most, this explosion, it was incredible, right? That's the fuel pools and the reactor cores. This is slower motion falling back down to Earth. Top part of the 3/4 of the top part of the building, in other words, falling back down to Earth.
In response to your third question, we do not, in response to your, in response to your second question, we do not have any data that shows that the spent fuel rods had not been stored in accordance with regulations and specifications.
So, this is covering their bases, is what you're seeing here. Right? Everything is scripted clearly. The walls of the Unit 4 spent fuel pool have collapsed. There is no water. So if the walls of the fuel pool, so if you got a swimming pool and your swimming pool walls collapsed, do you think the water is going to stay there? Say you're in a bathtub, your bathtub's full of water. And then one side of the bathtub collapses, it cracks right off. Do you think the water is going to stay there? Do you think you put water back in there? This was the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's March email. There is no water in there. No, well, the walls collapsed. The fuel may no longer be intact. That's a polite way of saying we have an extinction event.
再臨界にならないかどうか、なるかどうかということについては、そういうことは絶対にならないように、我々としては手当てしなければいけないと思っています。
And regarding your third point about the possibility.
Right, so I cut out all of that chatter today.
Of re-establishment of criticality, our position is that we have to make sure that would never absolutely occur.
Oh, great. Well, that's nice of you. A renewed chain reaction feared at the spent fuel storage pool, reactor number 4. This was March the 20th. This is 3 days after they did this. But the building had lost its inventories, right?
Thank you, Stephen Young with CNN. I think you touched upon a point about data reliability early, and I think that's a sort of question on a lot of people's minds. So you kind of mentioned because the power was out for a long time, a lot of these measurement equipments are not working properly or were not working properly. So you, the data you guys.
Listen, he's saying what you guys, instead of saying we have evidence of huge pieces of the building being ejected into the atmosphere. There's no such thing as a journalist. These are just traitors, monsters.
Provide may not be reliable. So I think if the government itself is acknowledge the unreliability of such information, how do you think the rest of the international community could trust the information the government of Japan provides? And if so, what are you doing to try to address this issue by provide more timely and precise information to the rest of the world, especially in light of the evacuation orders and travel warnings a lot of embassies and governments have issued to their citizens? Thank you.
Right, all the embassies in Tokyo were abandoned in Tokyo. Canada, New Zealand, we have a whole list of them, the French even. And rightfully so, thank goodness they did. Unfortunately, the rest of the people didn't get that luxury. See, that cloud, each particle in that cloud is splitting atoms on its own. So wherever it goes for 1 million years, that'll be splitting atoms. And this went all over our planet. And so the plume gets bigger and bigger and bigger all day, every day. So down at this point, I haven't preloaded, but I was just trying. I was running out of time. I was pretty exhausted at this point, and I said, "Well, I'll just try to focus on chopping it out, and I'll fill in the gaps after." It's kind of a thing, right? We're doing pretty good, all things considered. We're not going to get it. Everything done tonight. Might do an early show tomorrow and try to finish it out, or I might not get back until hopefully Sunday at least, the latest. I gotta admit, I'm exhausted today. So this is a Neptunium-239 dispersal based on 20 days of radioactive fallout. And Neptunium-239 decays to plutonium. So that model, after 5 more days, all of it will be plutonium-239 because Neptunium-239 has a 2.5-day half-life. And the reactors I showed you are not in these projections. And what I'm trying to say is that the inventories, the 19 or 18 reactors at the top of these 2 buildings are not modeled into that plume. And the official story is they never lost that, but they lost it. And pretending because a bunch of scumbags said it didn't go, that doesn't make it so. This is a plutonium plume. This is a plutonium plume. Well, let me just cover that for... because that's kind of important foundation for everybody that's still not sure of the significance of what we're talking about, the health effects of what we're talking about. We covered and the last one of these videos that we're doing right now was the health effects of Fukushima. Was on the 16th of March. We covered that in the last three videos, I think. Well, not necessarily last night was the earthquake. And that video, the screen captures I was showing you, that was the nuclear power plant. Okay, so think about plutonium, because this stuff is going to decay to plutonium after 25 days. There's 10 decays one every 2.5 days, 25 days. So the dog studies, 144 dogs, they all died of multiple tumors. And the tumors were typically lung, skeleton, and the liver. Skeleton bone tumors, 93 dogs were the most common cause of death of 144. Lung tumors in 46 dogs, the second most common cause. And then liver tumors, and these were competing causes. And then the suggestion, this study was by Loveless Respiratory Research Institute, New Mexico, which is the U.S. the U.S. Navy Research Institute. And the name Loveless, interesting name they picked for it. The finding in the dogs, they said, suggests similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans accidentally exposed to plutonium. Well, this is all now plutonium. That's day 21. 4 more days later, and everything is plutonium. It turns out, though, that the human kidneys are at least, if not a lot more, 50 times less efficient than an animal's kidneys at removing plutonium. 50 times less. So you're 50 times more likely to die than the dogs did, and every one of the dogs died, and they died a brutal death. But that plume, the biggest byproduct in that plume is not plutonium or neptunium or plutonium. It's actually curium. Curium isotopes are a major byproduct in the irradiated nuclear fuel. So forget the alpha for just a minute. It's the major byproduct. So when it comes to isotopes, not gammas, alphas, neutrons, or betas, but just isotopes, it's the major byproduct. And so curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. And the major byproduct is curium, not neptunium/plutonium. So whenever you hear neptunium-239, after 2.5 days, it's already 50% of it is decayed to plutonium, which has a 24,000-year half-life. So 250,000 lifespan.
It does not mean that all data is unreliable. We are appropriately ascertaining and identifying which information can be reliable and which are not. And we believe that we are collating the information and data we have with the actual status of the units and the plants that we have been reported and we have been seeing with our own eyes. And based on all those information, we believe we are taking the best measures that are available. Regarding disclosure of information by the government of Japan, we are making an effort to disclose as much information as we can, and the website of the NISA, the Nuclear Industry Safety Agency, provides the most latest information in English.
それから、この避難する人々が避難する範囲については、
This was 2012. The journalists still never questioned them.
And also regarding the extent of the area to which we issue an evacuation notice, we are taking into consideration a variety of different elements, including the fluctuations in the climate and direction of the wind, as well as any incidents that could occur. And in addition to that, we take into account ensuring the safety of the residents in deciding on to which extent we will be issuing an evacuation notice. 最後の
John Herskowitz from Reuters. Just two questions. Just to follow up on the previous question, are the spent fuel rods in 3 and...
Let's just go back to that. Send us people who don't mind dying. That was right away, because they put that out right away, not December, but that's when the story came out. Because you got to realize, there's links below to 4 million emails. Quite a lot of it's redacted, but you can read between the lines. So it wasn't until later a lot of this stuff came out. But they sent that out right away when Reactor 1 exploded, because they couldn't get a nuclear scientist or an engineer to ever go near that place forever and ever and ever, right?
John Herskowitz from Reuters. Just two questions. Just to follow up on the previous question, are the spent fuel rods in 3 and 4 fully covered with water? And secondly, are you using any robots, automated equipment, now that there's so few people at the plants, to help in this rescue, relief, cleanup, cool down operation?
How are you using robots? It's so absurd to suggest you could use a robot in these environments, which is absurd again, because they didn't even try to develop something for the next nuclear accident. They don't care. They like it. They built it on tectonic plates, for goodness sakes, with a 3,000-year history of tsunamis.
Regarding the water,
like almost 15 years later, they still don't have robots. So it's absurd to suggest they had one.
For covering these spent fuel rod in units 3 and 4. For unit 3, we are quite certain that there is a certain amount of water.
Well, there's clearly no water in reactor 3. Right? I don't know why we're having that conversation.
Because we are seeing some white smoke-like steam from the plant.
Yeah, but look at it. The white smoke is the remnants of a massive infernal nuclear inferno.
4号機の使用済み燃料と水との関係については、先ほど申し上げた2つの説の中でまだ決めきれないでおります。
And regarding how much water is covering the spent fuel rod in Unit 4, as I have mentioned earlier, there are two theories, and we have not yet been able to finalize which of the two theories is actually occurring.
which ones are actually occurring? It's pretty quick, Dana. Slow it down a bit. I don't know if, yeah, I can do that maybe. That's a bit better, is it? Wow. Well, let's look at 4 sides of reactor 4. You'd ever seen that picture before, I bet. Unless you've been here. That's pretty... How many engineers on the planet will say that there's fuel or water or anything else left in that building? Right.
Thank you. I'm Greg Tarot of the South China Morning Post, Hong Kong. Could you tell us what is happening to the seawater as it leaves the plant?
Goes in the ocean.
How it is being disposed of, and does it pose a radiation risk? And also, could you...
The journalist knows what's up, right? Their job is to ask a specific question and then shut up. Don't ask follow-up questions. Don't challenge their narratives. They don't have a reply. They have a script, and everybody got their script. All the journalists have their script. You know, when their turn to ask a question, what the question will be. That's why they get paid the big bucks for one question.
Confirm whether or not any of the frontline workers have been hospitalized for any kind of radiation sickness in the last 48 hours? Thank you.
Like, when you look at an explosion like this and what's coming down to Earth is hell. It's a living hell where your organs melt in just a few minutes. And you're going to suggest that there was no adverse side effects among the population that were forced to go in there? And you were forced to.
The seawater is being supplied to cool the fuel.
Yeah, but you can't supply seawater. Like, just say it didn't blow up. You're talking about 1,000 pounds per square inch pressure. So, like, the hoses from the fire trucks are not going to be able to oppose 1,000 pounds per square inch, right? They don't have any power immediately, and this is many days later. And then it's absurd, but the reality of it is the buildings there is no containment. So the question is asked to make you believe that there's containment.
And after it finishes its function of cooling the fuel, the seawater is vaporized in most cases.
It's atomized and aerosol and ionized and radiated. So this was their way of avoiding of the word storage or something, right? And this is weaponized water, any water that did. You've seen the videos from the helicopters I showed you earlier. There's no water. You're seeing bone dry.
And currently, there is no concern about any leakage of the seawater.
I'm not the least bit concerned about that, are you? Must be a horrible life, you know, to know that you're evil and that your loved ones think you're a good person. It's got to be weird. See her rolling her eyes that time? Watch this. Let's zoom in on that. I want to see that. All right, I'll zoom in. Give me a second here. We'll get right on her. She rolls her eyes towards him, but it was the way she'd done it where she's been around. Just the worst kind of a human, eh? Cut your throat, and it means nothing to him. There's no emotions among these people whatsoever. Watch her roll her eyes. She rolls her eyes over that guy. I gotta get out of the way here. Hang on, let's do it one more time. Yeah, she's a bad actor, that one, man.
And regarding a question about radiation exposure of workers in the plant, according to information that we have received as of this morning, the result of measurement of 18 workers working in Fukushima, number 1 power generation plant, indicated that for one worker, a level of 106.3 millisievert was measured, whereas for the remaining 17
106 millisieverts, 106.
workers, the levels were not in a range that would have any effect on the health of a human being.
Wow, that's cold, man. Her loved ones should find her and ask her to explain herself. That was the reply of what a monster would say, right? That's crazy.
But we have not been told of the exact levels for these remaining workers from whom there was no level of radiation detected that would have any effect on human health.
It's crazy. How can you not have that? It was 10 sieverts per hour means there's a direct exposure to the fuel rods. There was a lot of place. There was lots of pieces of the reactor fuel pool all over the place. There was lethal doses. There was nowhere safe you could go.
And also for the one worker whose measurement indicated a level of 106.3 millisieverts, there is no concern of internal radiation or internal exposure to radiation, and it has been confirmed that there is no need for any medical treatment.
It was equal to how many bananas again? And it was veritasium, say a couple hundred bananas or something. By the way, Tokyo Hospital, as for sale, will dispatch its doctors to Fukushima to treat the workers at Daiichi and Daini for radiation at Daini. Tokyo Hospital, by the way, is owned by TEPCO.
The points that I have been making so far are indicated in your handouts from page 12 onwards in the news release that has been distributed to all of you.
Second explosion was more like a bomb at Fukushima. The spent nuclear fuel flew 30 kilometers away. Should have evacuated out to 300 kilometers, way past Tohoku. Absolutely, I way past Nagasaki.
Thank you very much. We would like to entertain many more questions, but unfortunately I think we have come to the time of closing of this press conference. There is one last comment that the interview would like to make.
日本はこれまでに経験したことのない
So there's the original picture over there, and in 2020, this is what they said it looked like, that they were at the top of the building and the fuel pool and everything was intact.
Japan is currently faced with a very challenging situation that Japan has never experienced up to now.
Nobody's experienced that worldwide. Japan's the very last people you want to be trusting.
And the Japanese people are working together and uniting with each other to solve and overcome this challenge that we are now facing.
You can't resolve it and overcome it. It's nuclear meltdown, stupid.
And during this period, we have been receiving various forms of assistance and various words of encouragement from many countries throughout the world. And I would like to take this opportunity to express our deep gratitude.
Yeah, once you go there and take Buddy's job, put those paper suits on and get out there and sacrifice yourself for the good of your country. It's really, the truth is so difficult for the average person that we do these videos in the hope that we can help the world come to its senses.
我々としてはなんとかパニックになるようなことなく、冷静に対応していく考えであります。
And we intend to keep calm to meet this challenge without falling into a panic.
That's what they got now. That's why they got all those sirens around a nuclear site so you can fucking panic. They're panicking.
And we will make sure to provide all the information we can going forward. And so I do hope that all of you will understand the situation that we are in and be able to make available to the global community and convey and communicate to the global community the points that we have just made.
It's not over yet. It's far from over yet. Unusual amount of smoke billowing from reactor 3 and 4. Nothing to be concerned about, says TEPCO. TEPCO was not a decommission authority. They should never have been left in positions to make any decisions, right? They were on the hook. They were already nationalized by the government because they were on the stock market, so the shareholders. Let's keep going. This is, I got his name in the description too. He injected himself before the press conference. When you start seeing the press club, you're not hearing enough noise in the background, right? It's really suspect. You're not hearing cheers. And if there's a lot of people there, you're not hearing it.
Normally, I'm working...
Sorry.
Normally, I'm working on higher education matters. And actually, when...
So he's not a nuclear expert either. None of them are. Not one of them sitting there is a nuclear expert.
This earthquake hit Japan. I was in Hong Kong to attend international conference on higher education.
He was in Hong Kong, I think he said, was it?
And returning on weekend, since then I joined emergency response team of my ministry. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to government, organizations, and friends of all over the world for their warm words of condolence and offer of help. And having said that, I want to explain about what my ministry is doing concerning this earthquake. Mainly three things. First one is radiation monitoring. Second one is mobilization of radiological health experts. And thirdly, information to international students in Japan. First thing, radioactive monitoring. We are conducting two kinds of radiation monitoring. The first one is off-site monitoring, and which means the area outside 20 kilometers from Fukushima #1 nuclear power station. As you know, the radius of 20 kilometers is evacuated, and area between 20 kilometer and 30 kilometer radius is for sheltering. So we are conducting radiation monitoring in that area with the cooperation of Fukushima Prefecture, Self-Defense Force, and electric utilities. We are mobilizing 12 monitoring cars today and covered that area and outside the area. And we began this kind of monitoring late evening of the day before yesterday. And all the data we obtained from that monitoring activity is website of my ministry. And at this moment, the data is only in Japanese version, but English version will be up maybe today or at the latest tomorrow. That's the first kind of monitoring. And the second kind of monitoring is radiation monitoring of all over the Japan. We put every prefecture at least one radiation monitoring station. And we gather data from those stations every hour, in principle every hour, and twice a day we publish the data we got from those stations, also in our website and through mass media. And the second thing is the mobilization of radiological health experts. We mobilized more than 60 experts from National Institute of Radiological Health and university hospitals all over the Japan. Most of the experts are working in the affected area to conducting radiation screening of evacuee and decontamination, their contamination if necessary. And also a hospital of National Institute of Radiological Science in Chiba accepted one self-defense force member from the site. He got injured when he was working in the site, and there was a possibility of internal exposure. So he was sent to the hospital and treated accordingly. And the third thing, up to now, I want to add one thing. There was a question about a robot, and one technical support organization of my ministry has been developing monitoring robot, which is not a rescue work or such kind of thing, but monitoring in very severe area. And we mobilized, we put to standby those robots, and now Tokyo Electric Power Company is planning how they utilize that robot. And the third thing is the information providing for international students in Japan. There are more than 140,000 international students in Japan, and they want to know what happened, and also what happened with respect to the earthquake itself, and also with respect to the situation in Fukushima nuclear power plant. So, and of course other support measure, financial support and that kind of thing. So we put a special English page in our website for them to supply such kind of information. So that's what my ministry is doing with respect to the earthquake. Thank you very much.
None of these are experts, and the people that are doing the testing.
Normally, I'm working on higher education matters.
Sorry.
Kato 審議会へのご質問あれ
I'd
ば。
like to open the questions, floor for questions to Mr. Kato.
手短にお願いします。韓国の内外環境ニュースの長と申します。
So that was a South Korean is asked.
Joe from
and so if a foreign language, they have translators in the audience. I'm assuming that's what's going on there. they're going to do the translation over top of it, so that's not going to be cut out this time?
Korea? My question is follows. With this situation, is there going to be any administrative change in administration regarding nuclear power policy?
At
this point, from the high level of the government, next, as I have explained, in the area surrounding the power plant, and we will be dedicating ourselves to monitoring in and outside the plant, and we have been working on that every day. So we are focusing upon monitoring right now.
Safecast showed up. Safecast showed up and took over all of that with homemade Geiger counters. Evil little monstrous evil. Should these 4 high-level government officials get the death penalty for treason, racketeering, and genocide? And I complained to YouTube last night that, and see this, I can't highlight that. I come in and highlight anything on this page though. I can highlight that on that page, but on my inside page I can't highlight. I can highlight down below it. No, I can't highlight anything. I used to be able to tell about Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve, when the show was over, these numbers showed up right away. And then the next day, I got a warning on Google that my site has suspicious activity. And then this started happening again. And here we are now. Normally after 12 hours, I would regain the function on those numbers above you, which is the current show. When the show is over, that'll disappear and it'll look like this one down here. I won't have any functions whatsoever. And I can't highlight anything starting from down here. I didn't know I could do that part. I'll try to highlight it down there, right? Like normally I would do to take a screen capture to document it. So they're saying I got 44 views tonight so far, 13 viewers, 20 likes. But after I won't have access to that. And so now we're almost at the 1 day mark for last night's video, which is the one I was just showing you. That one right here. This one right here, right? Oh. But that's been going on for quite a few months now, right? But things changed on Christmas Eve. The show before Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas Eve, actually, we done our last show. We have no views tonight again. Should these 4 high-level government officials get the death penalty for treason and racketeering, and then by genocide too, because of what they've done? They're guilty of all of that. Japan has the death penalty. Japan should prosecute them, right? But these are the government officials. They're not going to prosecute the government officials. At least not this administration, anyway.
Normally, I'm working on higher education matters. And actually, when this earthquake hit Japan, I was in Hong Kong to attend international conference on high.
Thank you. I'm from the Associated Press. I have 2 more questions for Mr. Nishiyama, if I may. First, can you tell us, have there been any deaths associated with this? You mentioned injuries earlier. I just want to make sure that I do ask about whether anyone was more seriously injured and has died. The second question is, you mentioned that generating equipment on vehicles was taken to the power plant at a very early stage.
What are you going to do with a generator there? How are you going to work a generator after this came through your facilities, your buildings, electronics were all ripped apart? Well, for the whole coastline, for around 1,000 kilometers, this creature ripped everything apart.
There's been some question about whether TEPCO and everyone was doing everything they could at the beginning, so I want to make sure I understand what happened with that equipment.
TEPCO was just an operator. They were a business. There were suits and ties.
Was it?
If you go and buy a Porsche, you bring it home and it breaks down, do you fix it or you get a mechanic?
Why was it not possible to use portable generating equipment very early to supply power to the equipment at the power plant?
So they're looking for the official response.
And what was that generating equipment used for?
They're looking for the official response to cover a previous story that people poked holes into, I would imagine, right? When that tsunami ran through that part of the country, those people didn't die because of hypothermia. They were put into a boat chute. Or you had all these reactors. Now, that journalist would have known, because he's at the press club, so that's a journalist. They would have known that it's a no-go zone. It's no survival rate. It's lethal doses everywhere. It doesn't matter how brave or stupid or complacent you are, you can't survive in the environment.
Let me respond to your first. Let me respond to your second question first.
She's responding to the last guy over.
At the very early stage, we did bring in power generating vehicles. However, we had some difficulty connecting that to the power generating units.
And then the explosions meant you couldn't get anywhere near anything to plug anything in anyway. Right, there's nothing functional left.
And also regarding the actual cables, and also we had, as I mentioned earlier, various obstacles in the way which had to be removed.
Oh, obstacles? You mean like lethal death zones everywhere? I think we'll leave it right there, will we? I'm burnt out. Apologize. I kind of knew that was going to happen to me tonight. It was just all the chopping I had to do on this video, and then, you know, the routine, right? Most of you do, I'm sure, anyway. Should these 4 high-level government officials get the death penalty for treason, racketeering, and genocide? Should those 4 people get, yeah, they should. Alrighty, this is part 1. The second part will go really a lot the same way. It'll go pretty quick because I've done a lot of preamble work today. And those people should be sent out for that job right there. That's the reality of it. Have a look over here. James has got a new video just posted. Oh, perfect timing. Liking it. I was checking there about 15 minutes ago. He wasn't there. Well, I guess he was actually. So 20 minutes ago, he wasn't there. And if you didn't, I was going to play Yellow Cake. What's it called? Yellow Cake Mule? Yeah. He did. And he's linked to a story below. Let's have a look at that before we call it a night. Oh, that's, I got that story in one of my folders. I'm getting around to it. It's not the exact same site, though, I don't think. Might be. I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, this is about the reclaiming plutonium-244 and curium-244. What they call heavy curium, which is the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rods, and plutonium-244. Yeah, I still got to do some work on that story. So, I think plutonium-244 got a half-life of 8 years or something, is it? Just hang on, let's bring that up. And then it decays to plutonium. And I got it there, actually. So curium-244, because curium-244, there's more room there. Yeah, that's 248. 244, I'm going to clean my glasses, is 18 years. I'll bring plutonium up, actually. Plutonium-244 is 7 years. And it decays to curium-244, which is the other isotope that they're trying to reclaim. And that has a half-life of 18 years. And then 240 is 6,500 years. I already know that one. Yeah, 6,561 years before it decays a second time, right? So that's what this video is going to be about. It's going to be about, it's not, I don't know if you call it Mox fuel. I can't remember the story. I don't know if they're trying to make Mox fuel or something even more evil. They're trying to reclaim legacy isotopes that should never be done. It's actually illegal in Canada, the United States, to reclaim that stuff. He just posted it. Let's see everybody. I don't think I'll make it back tomorrow night. I might. You never know with the internet. If I get the energy, I will, but it's been a rough few days for me, so. Hugs for everybody. See everybody on the next one. Take care.
Innovation. Assemblies transferred under shielding, geometry under change since irradiation, material reassigned from storage to active handling. Hot cell sealed to negative flow, manipulators brought online, tools positioned for contact that cannot be undone. Chains separate by behavior under shifting oxidation states. Curium follows expected pathways. Plutonium remains. Secondary streams accumulate immediately. Volumes exceed initial estimates. Containment adjusted. No reduction achieved. Need declared before absence. Process resumed without demand. Separate. discontinuation follows, no return to passive state. Hot cell isotope innovation, initiated by recovery, sustained through continuation after purpose expires. Hot cell isotope innovation, legacy material reopened because closure was not accepted. Radiochemical operations proceed using retained methodologies. Yields mirror historical production under modern constraints. Neutron source precursors isolated for later conversion. Reference material removed from long-term storage. Phase transition, record exposure. Material form, preserve conditions beyond detection. Separation multiplies obligation rather than resolves it. Each recovery step extends what was already present.